Summer really is the new star of Baddies. The Pretty Three is clearly no longer after the beating K. Rican took from Tinker with no help. And Dolly just gonna be Dolly. But the bigger question is, why did Zeus really play in our faces with this 3-part reunion? One thing about them is they are going to try to stretch things out and try to make fetch happen. A lot could have been cut out and tightened from each, reunion episode, and we could have had a solid, well-paced 2-part reunion, but instead it got dragged out with repeated moments and unnecessary extensions. Like, come on now. But let's talk about it. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time you are watching this. Hey y'all, hey. So as you already read the title down below, I'm about to recap Baddies USA Chapter 1 Part 3 Reunion, the finale to this season, and I can't lie, I am so glad it's over. This season didn't do what it was supposed to do, and I'm already ready for Chapter 2, but anyways. Y'all know we ended off the last part of the reunion with Funna fighting Diamond, and Diamond thought Natalie was Funna, so she slung Natalie to the ground. Because she was just that drunk and didn't know what was going on. It was a complete mess. But I ain't gonna lie. It was funny. It really was funny. It tickled my pickle. But that's what Natalie get for, trying to be in the way and want to play freaking security. But she needed to move out the way and sit down somewhere. And you can tell she was pissed off when it happened by the way she got up afterwards. Now everybody jumps in on Diamond to defend Natalie, but let's be real. She didn't even, really mean to hit Natalie. But low key, I don't know, with Diamond, she probably did. Just to get her last little lick. Now that her and Natalie cool, she probably could have, and try to play it off like, oh, I'm drunk. But to be honest, she really was, just that out of it. But still, the whole thing just looked crazy as heck. After all that happened, Diamond is still in like wanna fight mode with Fauna, just really not letting up at all. It literally took Tinkerbella to hold her back and force her to stop. And that's a real friend. That's a real friend because she really needed to stop. And honestly, thank God for that, because Diamond looked way too intoxicated to be fighting anybody. It wasn't even entertaining at that point. It was just sad to watch. I don't even know why production allowed that, but then again, this is Baddies. And then in the middle of all this chaos on stage, they transition, outside and finally show Summer arriving. Because y'all know all Santana been saying is, oh, where is Summer? We need Summer. So everyone assumed, she wasn't showing up. Well, baby, Summer is here. She pulled up, dressed up like she wasn't there to fight, but I knew she was about to switch it up later because, baby, everybody was waiting for her and they all wanted her head, off with her head. So then they brought, DJ Scott out to the stage, and she kind of was like just in the back, standing in the back, just doing too much, but nothing at all at the same time, because she knew Mariah wanted to fight her. And that's all Mariah kept talking about, because apparently DJ Scott had 3 people jump Mariah at a club or something. I don't even know. And honestly, it had nothing to do with the show. So I'm like, who cares? But of course, they still had to drag it out and make it a moment. Then, as Scott is on the stage, here comes Tommy, probably drunk and high out her mind, running onto the stage like a wild chicken, fur flying everywhere. And I'm not even exaggerating. Like, that's really what Tommy was giving. And she's just crazy, because why you even came out like that? But the second Lex saw her, Lex sprinted to her. Sprinted towards Tommy and popped her in her face. She threw Tommy all the way to the back of the stage, and Tommy went tumbling and fumbling like a falling chicken. It was hilarious. And then after Lex got her, everybody else started running towards Tommy too. Well, not everybody, but like Cole Killer, and I think somebody else. I don't know if it was Tavi. I don't know. I can't remember who it is, but it was somebody else. And it was just pure chaos. But anyways, they tried to shift the attention back to Mariah and DJ Scott fighting, but nobody cared at this point, because let's be real. Everybody was focused on Tommy. And it's so funny because this literally happens every season. Tommy is low-key irrelevant the whole time doing the show. Then she does one thing that pisses everybody off, and boom, everybody is on her head at the reunion. Like, it never fails. I'm not even going to lie. Whatever they are paying Tommy, they need to keep paying her. She is a whole mess, but I love it. Now, she's entertaining to me, but Tommy need to stop. For real. So then, after all the running around the stage, sprinting back and forth, and running around the stage like a chicken with her head cut off, trying to avoid Mariah of all people, DJ Scott and Mariah finally fight each other. And then Mariah, gets a few licks in on Sky, but honestly, Sky can't fight. We already know this, so no shocker. So moving on, next on the docket, we get scenes with Diamond still trying to fight Fauna. And I'm not going to lie, at this point, I felt like enough was enough. And we don't need to see this. Someone needs to get this girl off the stage. But child, they are, here to get exploited. So I guess she got to stay on the stage. So Diamond and Fauna ends up fighting again. And it's like, that's really what Fauna kind of lost me. And she started losing cool points with me because why? At some point, it just felt like there needed to be a line drawn after everything that had, already happened, especially after we saw what Diamond just did to Natalie thinking it was Fauna. It really wasn't even worth continuing, trying to fight her. It was more of an ego thing for Fauna than anything. And Fauna was like, I'm drunk too, but you ain't that drunk. What she had going, that type of drunk she was, you wasn't that drunk. And you know that. So that was an ego thing for you. That was an ego thing, especially after Tavi had been dragging you. That was an ego thing for you. And in my mind, it was like, you gonna see her anyways after this. So you ain't even have to fight her as drunk as she is right now. You could wait. Y'all about to see each other in the next few weeks or a month or so. Then the scene shifted to Tommy, who had already been through it with multiple people, from Cold Killer, Big Lex, and like I said, somebody else. I can't remember. I feel like it was Tavi, but I really can't remember who the other person was. And at this point, Tommy's eyes swollen. She was clearly messed up, and she had visible marks from everything that she had, been going through. So the security and cameras were still, all over her, trying to get, close up and things of that nature. And Tommy started trying to fight them. Like she was just being aggressive toward the camera people, swinging and trying to, hit them. Tommy being Tommy, and it's not fun because it's like Tommy, but it's like they be antagonized. Oh, they know she gonna act like that, and she knows she gotta act like that for the cameras. It's all a setup that Todd, what it is that Todd set up. It's all the plot that Todd set up at this point because Tommy. But anyways, from there, production started, hyping up the crowd, making it seem like somebody major was about to come out. Then Janisha said, Beyonce was coming, and even though it was clearly a joke and nobody actually believed it, it still added, to the build-up. But in a way, it wasn't even, completely far-fetched because Summer has honestly become a Beyonce of Baddies. She really has. In the sense that she's become the central focus of the show. And that part is still kind of crazy to me because it feels like Summer really has been, elevated into a star in this environment. Granted, some people are just naturally entertaining and she definitely has that energy, but at some point, accountability still has to be, a part of the conversation for some of the things she has said and done. On top of that, Summer still has a lot of growing up to do. And because a lot of her behavior gets enabled both by production and the fan, her fan base responses, there's a real concern that she may never fully, reflect on her actions or see where she needs to adjust. It becomes a cycle where the behavior keeps getting rewarded instead of corrected. But at the same time, this is Baddies. So expecting consistent accountability or pushback doesn't really, make sense in the first place. And realistically, that's just not what this show operates on. So it's just on me for even, wanting that or expecting it. But anyways, when Summer finally came out, she didn't enter from the back of the stage like most of the other people. She came through the crowd instead. And honestly, that was a smart move for her. That was smart. It felt like a way for her to avoid, being overly staged in a vulnerable spot where things could have gone left quickly because she's in the back and she's closer to them. So in a sense, it was a calculated interest on her part. And also, too, the crowd gonna gas her up. So, Summer loved that. And low-key, it was a unnecessary one because the energy around her was already high enough without making it easier for things to escalate. So when Summer got to the center stage, the first person to really meet her was Rolley. And it was clear that this was something Rolley had been waiting on. That energy had been building up for a minute. So the moment they locked in, it immediately turned into tension. Once they started going back and forth, it was nonstop from both sides. Summer was honestly winning the back and forth because she's so entertaining in the moment that you can't even deny her. You can't even deny the type of person she is, her personality. You can't deny it. She just has a slick mouth, and it's one of those things where even in the middle of conflict, you can't help but notice how quick and sharp she is with her words. Even the simplest comebacks turns into something hilarious because of how she delivers it. So in a moment, while she's going at Rolley, calling her a fat ass and telling her to come closer, I couldn't do nothing but be tickled. I couldn't. She. But the girl is funny. The girl is an idiot, but she is a funny one. So at this point, it's still, mostly verbal back and forth going on. Nobody had really, fully committed to a clean run up on each other. So it was just tension building on the stage. Then the focus shifted to Bad Dolly, who slid off to the side and started another situation with Cold Killer. But honestly, it felt like a setup for her to get closer to Summer. Dolly clearly have issues with Cold Killer. We know this. But the way she moved made it seem like her real intention was to get closer to Summer's side of the stage. It looked strategic. Like she was using that interaction with Cold Killer as a way to position herself for what she actually wanted to do. And that's exactly what she ended up doing and what ended up happening. She used that moment to slide past security, ignored the initial confrontation she was having, and she went straight towards Summer, and everything broke loose again instantly. But what stood out in all of this is how many people had that same slick mouth energy as far as like Summer and Dolly. Like Rolley, she ain't quick with the comebacks, but that Dolly quick. Summer be quick. So they back and forth was good. The way she was talking about Summer saying she's a baddie turned blogger was wild, but also kind of accurate. At the end of the day, all the girls know that Baddies is their main source of income and main thing they have going on. Granted, some of them are, starting to figure out how to flip their moments into something more, like, Dolly trying to push her music and build off of that attention she's getting. Some are using content, commentary, or just staying visible online. It's her way. So it's clear some of them are trying to maneuver what they have going on and expand beyond just a show. But for now, it's obvious a lot of what they're doing is still tied back to Baddies and the platform it gives them. That's why it's so funny to me when someone kept saying, or like, not even funny, but crazy to me when someone kept saying Dolly don't have a job or don't have anything going on. Because to be honest, y'all in the same boat trying to turn this exposure into something. It just looks different from each person. But honestly, the whole situation is just a mess because y'all were just friends. And now this is what y'all, are doing to each other, saying to each other. Like, wow. But anyways, we then transition back to Rolley and Summer still going back and forth. And honestly, I was kind of understanding Summer more in a moment with her argument with Rolley, which sounds crazy coming out of my mouth because Summer gets on my nerves. But it was really the audacity of Rolley for me. Like I said in the first recap of part 1, Rolley was acting like she was cool with Summer, but at the same time, she was also talking about her behind her back and then acting surprised like Summer wasn't going to feel some type of way about it. At that point, it just felt like, no, you can't move fake and then act shocked when somebody responds to it. So I wasn't really rocking with that part. Rolley thinks she's some sort of fairy godmother, and she's not. And you can get this action too, babes. If we being honest, big, small, surgery or not, you can get that. You really can. So while all this is happening, Summer is clearly already tired because, she just had dealt with getting snubbed by Dolly and fighting Dolly. So she's trying to, catch her breath and regain her life, but still is arguing at the same time. So the energy from her is already a mix of frustration and exhaustion. But she's still holding, her ground. So she finally says she just needs to get something off her chest. And at first it feels like she's about to say something serious. Like it almost has like this type of suspense build up where you think, it's going to be a real sincere statement from her. And then immediately it switches and it goes to, well, she says, Rolley, you a fat ass. Bruh, I was crying. Summer play all day. So finally, after all that yapping and going back and forth, Rolley and Summer finally gets active. And I'm not even going to lie, Summer really ended up getting, the upper hand on Rolley. Now, I've always felt like Rolley isn't necessarily the best technical fighter. She's more so, a person that uses her size and her weight as her advantage. And honestly, that's just her style of fighting. Okay, it is what it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just, what she relies on. Like most people have their own strengths. But Summer was really handling, Rolley in a moment. And it looked crazy to watch because not Rolley, can't be. It was one of those situations where you're like, wait, Summer's actually winning this? Okay, that was unexpected, but okay. So what makes it even funnier is Summer attitude and again her personality. Because once she feels like, she's got the upper hand, she switches into a mindset of, oh, I'm done fighting you. Like, it don't even matter. I won. It is what it is, baby. I'm not fighting you no more. That's it. But in the middle of all that, she ends up backing right into Dolly's direction without even really clocking it. And that's when things pick back up again. Dolly immediately jumps back into, the mix, still trying to get her moment and starts going at Summer again. So now it's Summer dealing with Rolley, then shifting into Dolly again. And the space between everything just keeps getting smaller and smaller. And in that small opening, Rolley is still able to, sneak a few shots here and there. But I'm not even going to lie. I was locked in this whole time. All I know is Rolley is going to try and get Summer again. So Summer better keep her head on the swivel this upcoming season. It's not over. Rolley got to feel like she won when she fight. And Summer, baby, I hope you in the gym. Get your technique together, baby, because they all for to be on you. But another reason Summer is so funny to me is because she already knows she is not trying to, keep fighting. At a certain point, she is very aware of who she does and does not want to fight. And she moves, accordingly. She moves smart, as she should. It gets to the point where she's like, I don't want anybody else touching me. I'm done fighting. I'm for the leave. And is already looking for security to, step in and separate everything, she got going on so she can leave. But at this point, Big Lex wants to, run it back with Summer. But honestly, I do not really need to see that again. Lex already got her moment with her, so she should probably be good off that and move on from it. But I guess not. And Summer do be running her mouth online, so I get why Lex is still on it. But the way Lex did Summer in, Jesus, I don't even, how sometimes you just don't even want to see it no more? Like, I don't really want to see it. Especially at the reunion, I'm good off it. But like I said, if Summer continues talking crazy next season, then that is when I, want to see Lex come back up to the plate and handle her. But right now, I just don't feel like it's necessary because all it is going to do is drag things out and end up making people sympathize with Summer all over again instead of just letting the moment stay done and move on. Shit, shoot, you already got Summer and Summer. You already got Rolley and Dolly on top of her head. You ain't really have to get in there. And she was trying her hardest to get Summer's attention. She was really trying. It's so crazy because Summer really has become one of the central figures of Baddies. Like, whether everyone agrees with it or not, which is crazy because I just never cared for Summer. I don't think I ever would care for Summer unless she, start taking accountability and just grow. I don't think I ever like her, but I will forever be entertained by her. But like I was saying, whether everyone agrees with it or not, she has managed to turn herself into someone people consistently talk about and react to. Overall, it is clear she is not going anywhere in this space anytime soon. She is going to keep being part of the show, part of the conversations, and, part of the chaos that comes with it. And that's just the reality of it. So Summer ends up leaving, but Tommy was still there, but she was outside getting ready to leave with her bloody nose and her messed up eye child. But Big Lex knew she was still there, so she ran outside to get Tommy, and the camera crew was literally chasing behind her. The way they were moving with the cameras was going up and down. It was just giving me whiplash, and I felt like they needed to cut that scene out and move on to the next, transition or the next situation. So once things finally settled down a bit, the scene shifted back to the stage and the energy started to reset. But instead of fully moving forward, the focus went to Tavi, Fauna, and DJ Ari. And honestly, at that point, who even cares? At this point, who even cares? A lot of that tension had already played out, and it felt like this part of the reunion was being stretched further than it needed to be. Meanwhile, Cold Killer and Dolly were still going back and forth in the background, so it felt like multiple arguments were overlapping one conversation with no direction from Santana or Janisha. Now, one thing I want to bring up and kind of, talk about before I end the review is people keep saying that Dolly has been copying Summer's personality. At least that's what Cold Killer said, but I've seen people say it online as well. And honestly, I do not see that. To me, they both have funny moments, and they have always, had their own energy from the beginning of the show or beginning of the time that they were added to the show. And Dolly has always had that more country, outspoken type of personality. So I do not really see the comparison in a way that other people see it. Unnecessary. And what made it even more chaotic was that after all of that drama, they still brought out Smiley as the final baddie. And at that point, it just felt random. Like the energy had already died down, and they were still going to force another highlight moment onto us. It honestly felt like she could have just stayed backstage because they didn't really land the way it was probably intended to. And also, we just don't care about her. And then right after that, the conversation shifts again into the whole heaviest hitter topic between Big Lex and Tasiki. And honestly, I do not really understand why this keeps coming up over and over again. If certain people are cool with each other, then let them be cool. Let them be cool. At the same time, if the show wants that type of dynamic, then production should just fully commit to it and actually bring in more heavy hitters instead of constantly trying to force two people against each other who are clearly on good terms. Like, y'all are really dragging it. And beyond that, Lex brought up something that actually made sense to me. She was basically saying that Summer and Biggie are kind of the same in a way that they run their mouths, but always looking to their heavy hitter friends to defend them with certain, people. Now, I'm not going to say Summer is scared to fight, but Biggie usually is. And I do feel like Summer will stand her ground, but you can tell when she got into that altercation with Tasiki, she wanted Lex to help her. And I think that's why they really fell out. She wanted Lex to fight her. But no, Summer, you talk so much mess and always in people's business. And at some point, people get tired of fighting for you. And I do think that's where some of these friendships connect to. It's that shared understanding of having somebody who will step in and defend you when things escalate. But at the same time, it also creates tension because if I'm constantly telling you to chill out so I don't have to end up in some mess for you, then it becomes frustrating when you keep putting yourself in that position anyways, and I'm telling you to chill out. So I actually understand, I understood Lex's point in that moment, especially when it came to Biggie and Summer. It felt like she was pointing out a pattern. But overall, at this point, I was ready for the season to wrap up. But then we got into a conversation between Jayla, Janelle, Natalie, and all the extra back and forth. And then Dolly and Cold Killer was still going at it, along with Tinka and K. Rican. Oh, and before I end, I do want to say it is a little crazy that the Pretty Three, Fauna, Cold Killer, and K. Rican, supposed to be so close, but they did not jump in when K. Rican was fighting Tinka. Baby, she was tearing K. Rican up, and Fauna and Cold Killer was just standing around and just kind of having her back as far as helping her back up or giving her ice patches, but she needed help. She needed help. The same way she was helping them jump Tavi, she needed that help from them for Tinka. Like, it was crazy. That was really crazy to me. But that just goes to show how K. Rican is the oddball out of the friend group. Like, Fauna and Killer are closer, so they don't do for her how they do for each other, even though they are friends. Just my thoughts. Overall, they really dragged this reunion. I keep saying it, and I'm going to sound repetitive, but I want y'all to know, like, they really dragged this reunion out way longer than it needed to be. But that's Baddies at the end of the day. Anyways, that's all I have for this recap. Y'all already know what to do. Like this video and show your girl some love. Comment your thoughts and let's discuss Baddies USA Chapter 1 Part 3. I almost said 2, part 3 reunion. And last but certainly not least, subscribe and join the Queen, baby. Bye.